I'm Carl Poss, fifth generation cattle rancher. My great-grandpa settled out here up by Grindstone, 20 miles north of here, if anybody's familiar with that area. And then in the 1970s, ended up buying this south place and sending my dad here to run it. And this is where I was born and raised and lived here for the better part of my life. I did the usual of working full-time for a few years after college, and then when it worked out to come back home, I came home, and my dad and I run this place together now. So I've got 2 kids now and a wife, and standing right in front of my house. Happy to have you all here, and yeah, I've been interested in this transitioning to organic program. I think that as producers, especially with farming, but to some extent ranching as well, one thing we really struggle with is you have a set amount of acres, and with where our technology's at, we're already stretching as much out of each one of those acres for production-wise as we can. And in some ways, we're overproducing, especially on the crop side of things. There's way more crops than we can possibly eat right now. So as producers, I think from just a monetary standpoint, we should be thinking about how to add value to our product. And I think that organic's a very interesting thing for that, because we can prove to the consumer this is a quality product, this is something a lot of people are interested in, something they're willing to pay a premium for. And with the same number of acres, you can make it easier for your family to support itself with cattle production. And there's also, we haven't used many chemicals on our ground. My dad sprays for Canadian thistle, has in the past, but with the amount of acreage that we're talking about out here in western South Dakota, most producers don't use very many chemicals. And that's a huge advantage I think we have in our area as opposed to a lot of other parts of the country, is we kind of use natural methods to control the weeds. We rotate. Usually our cow herd grazes the same pasture for a month, and then we rotate pastures every month, and then every year we switch pastures. We hit it which time, and that way we can kind of evenly hit the grasses so that every pasture is getting grazed different time every year. That's something that might be a little harder to do in a smaller operation, but it really helps us out. We can take care of our cheat grasses, our bromes, all your undesirables. And then from a health perspective too, there's certainly chemicals that are perfectly safe to use, but we also all know crop dusters who have kind of have started to have health problems very early in their lives or passed away early because of prolonged exposure to some of the chemicals we're using for farming. So I think that there's health benefits to doing it that the consumer certainly sees and that we can benefit from as well by not having to handle some of the more dangerous chemicals. And like Pat was saying, in a perfect world, if you do things right, you can do just as well or better than some conventional farms can do and make a better profit off it. So that's why I'm interested in transitioning. For transitioning, right, we have a pretty mid-sized operation for this area. We run around 200 cow-calf pairs, my father and I together. And right off the bat, talking with him, we're going to start off small. We're going to start with around 20 to transition and just make sure that we can market them properly. And we're going to start with that, especially because we have to buy all of our feed. So we want to kind of get our toes wet, see how buying the feed goes, see how the marketing goes. And after a few years of that, we'll be looking into expanding it. Yeah, we didn't get a porta potty, so just talk with me or my wife, or when my father gets back, you can ask him too, and we'll guide you through the house and bring you to our regular bathroom in there.
Now you mentioned that so for the organic head, you're just going to purchase organic feed?
We have quite a bit of pasture. I need to check. I've been here for 2 years, and you can kind of retroactively certify your pastures if they haven't been sprayed to today. I need to check with my father. He's sprayed for Canadian thistle in the past. I need to figure out where he did that, but we have quite a few pastures that we could transition right away. Quite a few of our pastures in this area are actually federal ground, so we haven't been really spraying those or doing much with them in the first place. Not on our place. It's actually quite checkerboarded. We'll have a quarter here, a quarter there. When this is the U.S. Forest Service that we run on, and what I'm told is back in the Dust Bowl, quite a few of the homesteads around here went broke, and the Forest Service bought them, and so that's why you'll have one quarter that's federal, the next quarter's private, next quarter's federal, because those were the homesteads that went bust during the Dust Bowl. So this is actually one of our chunks of federal ground here. This ground hasn't been sprayed, seeded, not really managed in any way for quite a while. Got quite a bit it had crested. It's actually got the most weeds I've ever seen because we had such a wet summer and a dry spring that the cool season grasses weren't competing against some of the kochia weed. But you can see it's not too bad. We've got, generally this pasture gets used more in the cool season, so it's already been grazed this year come April. You can see some common grass types for us. We've got buffalo sod over here, crested, plenty of kochia weed this year. And then this year was probably the best year I've ever seen for gamma grass, which is pretty good cow feed. All this is just, it's like what naturally grows in the pasture. The only real way we've been managing it is changing, if we want to get rid of cheatgrass, we'll try and graze it every year in April or something, and kind of let the sod do as it wants to do. Yeah.
All right, one of the observations I see in this is, of course, we're having an issue in this country, and a lot of them with invasive tame grass, which is crested wheatgrass. But you see some warm season, the blue grama's coming here. The curl dock, that's a forb. One of the problems, the first thing I noticed when I come out here is the forbs we have. There's a lot of forbs out here, but they're not what you want. Cattle will eat them all, but most of the forbs have been taken out of this pasture, and that tells me it's been grazed. Let me see, not overgrazed, but it's been overutilized at the wrong time. It hasn't been, the season of use has not been changed, and they've been in here too long. When you're in a pasture, if you got a month pasture, which is what he's grazing this, in 5 days, their nutrition level is below what they need. The cattle already taken all of the ice cream out of this, so now they're eating a turkey carcass. So, but sometimes you're in a position you can't change at. So we got to be careful when we're doing that, especially if we're not feeding extra feed. We have to be ready to help these cattle when things start going down. That's how we've been able to make our cows and calves healthy enough we don't need to vaccinate. We will start feeding. I've learned it. I need to start feeding a lot of times in July, especially when you're on something like this. This year, not so bad. Last year, middle of July, this would have been brown on my place, and I'm sure it was here too. You're not that far from me. So this would have been brown. The energy level's too low and the protein level's too low. So we have to help them through with that. And where he's going organic, there's organic feed out there. The stuff I used last year, I could have got it organic, but it cost a little bit more. But we got to be ready for that. But crested, the leaves are so narrow on this, there's not a lot of good available forage on crested. Crested wheatgrass, intermediate wheatgrass, a lot of your cool season grasses, by the middle of April, they've decided what they're going to do. That's why you see so much warm season grass growing out here. The crested wheatgrass was suppressed this year. He got good regrowth, but it was suppressed, so that let the warm season come back. And he's got a lot of new warm season plants out here. I see a lot of them. When I was over there, there was a lot of new blue grama plants coming. I mean, they're brand new. They're within maybe 2 years old at the maximum. But the other thing I've noticed out here, there's bare ground. Not a lot for crested, but there's bare ground. But there's big patches of ground that doesn't have anything growing in it. And you can see right there, you got a new plant coming. So there's a lot of good things going here, but I would change this if it was on my place, okay? He's tied into what he's doing right now, but down the road, we need to see if we can't change some of this, either cut this pasture in half, and which you can do that with temporary wire. Depends on the water. You could cut it in half, and you make both pastures 30% better. So there's things we can do, even the Forest Service allows it. One of the things I seen over there was a little bitty dung beetle, and I saw one, but there's dung beetle activity out here. So that tells me that either he's got a lot of wildlife here keeping them alive, or he's not pouring the cattle at the wrong time. When do you guys pour? Do you pour? Okay, this dung beetle population is coming back. I don't know how long it's been since he poured, but it took me 3 years before I seen anything increase. And in 5 years, I had dung beetles that I had to have everybody empty their pockets when they left my place because they was packing dung beetles in them. I was kidding on that, but there's a huge population of dung beetles. And what we see on top of the ground here
Can you talk
is,
about the benefit of the dung beetle?
oh, okay. Yeah, dung beetle, I've had a dung patty hit the ground, and I've got pictures of it. And in 15 minutes, there was 42 dung rollers on that patty. And 15 minutes after that, it was gone. Well, that puts all the nitrogen in the soil. And
Fly control too.
huge fly control. But there's supposed to be 28 kinds of dung beetles in South Dakota. I've got 8 of them. And some of them will leave the patty alone. These patties here had dung beetles in them because they're light. There's no nutrients left in them. It's just hay. So, but, and if you pour cattle for fly control, you kill your dung beetles, and there's 28 or 29 insects that live off fly larvae. You kill all of them because they only got one cycle, but flies have 5 to 6 cycles a summer. So all of a sudden we got resistant flies, but the dung beetles and stuff are gone. Let the natural bugs take care of the flies. I mean, it's so much more. And with being in the pasture for 30 days, you're right on the line there where they're reinfesting themselves. Like my cattle in 30 days, they might be a quarter mile to a half mile away from this pasture and no access to it. So anything that hatches and comes up on the grass, my cattle are gone. That animal cannot find a host at that time. So that's part of my fly control, is to get away from them. So to answer your question.
Thank you.
So, but this pasture needs season of use changed. And I'm just talking what I would do with this pasture if it was my own private land, but you're tied into it. This season of change needs to be done here. I would come in here early spring, hit this crested lightly, but hard enough to take it down, and then get off of it. A month long, what you're doing is you're grazing anything that's going to compete with the crested. You're keeping it grazed off. Them cows in 7 days will come back and bite that plant, but they won't. Crested, the harder you graze crested, the more it likes it. So introduce grass. But then your green needle grass, none of it out here. As soon as that plant starts its regrowth in 7 days, they're going to bite it again. And that's when you start shortening the root system up real fast. So anyway, I do a little demonstration here with the plant. I'm going to take this off. I did get a little bit of root. Okay, now we've got a plant growing here. Let's say this is ground level and this is root. Most of your annual plants will have a big root system. This is no, they don't have a big root system. Your biennial have a huge plant roots and stuff. So, okay, now these cattle are going to come in here and going to clip this off. Okay, clipped it off. We got everything we need to make this grow. Okay, now it's back up in 45 to 60 days, and it started growing in 7 days, we got it back up to where it was. So is it recovered? That's this question I'd like you guys to answer. Is it recovered? Look at our root system. Clip it off again. So what happened to all of our desirable plants in season-long grazing or twice through grazing? We've killed them. I've been able to get green grass year-round with this method of letting this root system grow. I've got root mass down below the frost line, so that gives me green grass year-round in western South Dakota. So anyway, I kind of went off on a tangent there, but you know, we're talking about grass, and it takes a while and a lot of changes to get where I am, but you don't need to move your cattle every day. If you cut this in half, it was in here 15 days in each one, it would change this whole outlook of what you have here in 3 years, 3 to 5 years. A good native rangeland, you can change it in 3 years, and that's native rangeland has between 150 and 200 plants per acre. We're looking at 2, 3 here. This isn't healthy rangeland. Annuals and biannuals do not grow in healthy rangeland. So not much cheatgrass right here. There was back when I turned off here, but all of these forbs out here are an annual or a biannual. So we can fix it. Let's just put it that way. Regenerative ag, we can fix this land, and we need to start fixing it as soon as we can. Your microbe activity is pretty good here. You take a little bit of duff off the top of the ground. You smell that duff, and if it smells like an earthy potato bin, some of this people my age knows what a potato bin is, from rotten potatoes in the middle of winter. If that's what it smells like, there's a lot of microbial activity there. So, and this is pretty good out here. Where we started this, I've always known that there's been a problem with how we've been grazing. When I see bare ground under me, my horses all work real hard on the front end, and I finally figured it out just by the time I had to quit riding, because I'm looking like this over their neck all the time instead of setting back to keep their work on the back end. So what I saw is that your water tank there is desertified out about 50 to 80 feet. And then the grass starts, and then pretty soon it's the most beautiful grass you ever seen for about 20 feet. And then it goes back down to just a pasture. I knew that strip around that tank was the potential of my land. And I says, how do I get this? I says, it's all hoof action. So I listened to a couple of people. One of them was Ellen Savory down in Nebraska. And I come home and I told my wife, I says, I have a grazing plan I want to put in, and you can't make a comment about it for 2 years. Well, she said, okay, after silence for 2-3 minutes. But we started this, and in 2 years, we were still struggling, really struggling. I had the how, but I didn't have the why. And my question to you, Carl and Teresa, what is your why? You got to think about that. Why are you doing what you're doing? That's for you guys to figure out. If you don't have the why and you start the how, it's not going to work. So, but if you have the why first, it's all going to work. But we backed up in 2 years, and I figured out, now why am I doing this? So I figured out I need to make my land healthy. So we backed up and I made it simpler, and it's the same thing we're using today, is a lot simpler. And right now, with our new business we started, I've been gone for, I'll be gone for 6 grazing courses that we put on, my partner and I, for the summer, possibly 7. and my wife runs it while I'm gone. When she moves cows from one pasture to the other, she opens the gate, goes home, and comes back that evening and shuts the gate. It's that simple right now. We've been putting in permanent tanks finally, but I used 20 years, I used temporary tanks. Tried to burn four-wheelers up and stuff, so we went to the permanent tanks. Our land, in the first 4 years I was doing this, first 6 years I was doing the intensive grazing, I increased my forage base by 4 times. You talk about we got to get bigger. No, you don't. Stack a ranch on top. And I stacked 3 of them on top of my ranch. In that area. I mean, the whole place is not that way, but it was pretty degraded when I started this. It had been farmed for 80 years in western South Dakota and pretty degraded. But in 6 years, I've got it to really respond. So it can be done with anything. Am I done? I don't even know how far I can go. No, I'm not done. You know, this year we've had 140 head of cows on a section started there the 1st of May and pulled them off the 1st of August. So we got quite a bit of grazing on that when the NRCS says I couldn't have got near that much.
So you ran 140 mama cows?
Yep, in calves on a section. I was getting 23.5 acre days, and NRCS numbers said I could get 14. So I doubled it there with 5 3/4 inches of moisture. That's all I had to work with. So a lot of this stuff we're doing here, we're told that this is the way this country is. No, it isn't. We don't know what it is. We have no idea what this country looked like. So we've been able to increase our forage. We started out, the first year I did it was 20 acres, kind of like what you're doing. You're taking a small bite of this elephant that you're attacking. In 20 acres, now we've got pretty close to 4,000 acres out of 7,000 acre ranch into it. One year I run 1,200 head of animals on that place from May till November, and used less than a quarter of my place. And I've always got more grass than my neighbors, always. So our goal when I started this, without any guidance, was 1,000 pounds behind me. I don't care what I had in front of me, but I was leaving 1,000 behind. And that will increase your soil health. If you go below 800, you're degrading. You're starting to degrade your soil because you're leaving the bare ground and your microbes are dying. If you leave bare ground, your microbes are dying.
How big of an area are you measuring out to figure your pounds before you, like, leaving behind you?
Could you hand me that bag, please?
Yeah.
Oh, I forgot my ruler in there. I clip. I started out clipping, okay? The ring, oops, crown roll bag, a ring
Frisbee?
is
Does it glow in the dark?
the crown roll bag?
Does that glow in the dark?
No, it does not. It does not. We make these. Our company that we have, we make these rings. When you clip this ring, you take it times 100. So you get the grams out of this and you take it times 100. I'll take anywhere between 10 and 20 of these where I think the pasture is going to be to get an idea what I've got ahead of me. But I've got a gram scale that I measure. The other thing we do is when you measure this, you take South Dakota gives out sticks, you measure the height, and then it tells you how many pounds per inch, little measure in there, how many pounds per inch. And then I can take that stick and take off through the pasture and get 100 samples real easy on how high it is. When we consult, I take my stick, and that's how I measure how many pounds. A rough estimate in the pasture is with the grazing stick. But this is what we use. My daughter was a 7th or 8th grader when I started this, and she, in 2 weeks, could look at the ground and see how much was there, knew how much was there. You train your eye, you know, and you know, Carl's not that far from where we're at, and I can get pretty close to how many pounds was out there, just by guessing. But if I go like into East River or something, I'd have to take a clipping. I can take a wild guess, but I have to train my eye to it. So, but I lived with these for 2 weeks after I learned what I'm doing. Learning. I didn't learn what I'm doing. I'm learning what I'm supposed to be doing. So, very good tool. And we give one of these things away at our school, our course we teach. Bart Carmichael and I've got a business going. Principal Land Managers is the name of our business, and we put on a grazing 3-day grazing course, consulting, speaking. I mean, we speak all over the country, and like here we're 16 inches, so you got 1 graze a year. 10 inches is 1 graze a year. Until you get to 20 inches, 1 graze a year. So the rest of it goes in your bank. You know, it's just, and we got to rebuild our soil from everywhere. So, but the halters, I would have used them if I didn't have my infrastructure set up.
So if you are running cattle on one day, you said you get 1 graze a year. You're doing high intensity and moving them every day. So that area that you gave them that one day, you won't come back to that area again that year.
Right. It's a recovery. How much recovery we did it. Okay, now everybody talks about rest. Okay, now we need to let our land rest. Rest doesn't come until after it's recovered, fully recovered, and then you're rested. Well, it takes 1 growing season to fully recover it. So if we come back in 12 months, we're doing damage to it. It hasn't rested yet. So 12 months it's recovered. Okay, now we'll give it another 2-3 months of rest. It's a hard one to fathom, but we're finding out that rest and recovery is backwards. It's got to be recovery and then rest. So anyway, that a different concept that we're going, but you can also rest it too long. I have part of my place set up. I rested it for 16 months. I lost all my cover, all my dead grass. You know, the down grass is very important. The microbes ate it all in 16 months.
And then
I got bare ground. So I should have grazed it in 14 months, and I could have stopped that. Not a big deal. I just went back and fixed it this year. I deferred pasture for a whole year to just see what would happen. Well, I shouldn't have deferred it quite that long. So
your farm ground that you had row crop ground that you put back to pasture, right? That was something you did.
Right, yeah.
How long did that take to get to where you could actually use that pasture?
It was actually in the CRP for 10 years, and then I got it out. It was starting to die. 3 years, the CRP starts dying. If a plant isn't stimulated in 3 years, it will start dying. But I took it out, and the first thing I did was hate it. Didn't like what that did, so then I grazed it. One big section there, and I grazed it. That wasn't good, so I cut it in 4. And as I was grazing, I was learning that the first and second pastures I was in every year wasn't responding right. It just wasn't working. And then I learned this everyday move deal, and this pasture just exploded. The bare ground went away. The plants are healthy, they're dark green. You know, it's just, change what you do and the land's gonna change what it does. So do the cows.